Hi guys, it's Fred here, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can use first principles to actually fix your injury. So this isn't a shiny topic, it's not a particular magical exercise that's going to fix your knee pain, your shoulder pain, whatever injury you're dealing with. It's actually a way of thinking. It's a way of reasoning, and it's going to be incredibly valuable in your rehab journey. It's what I've used personally when I think about constructing injury rehab, but it's also what you can think about when you're creating your plan of attack for your injury and what the best method is to get you there. And this is also going to give you a massive advantage over a lot of people, because not many people are going to click on this video because it's not that shiny object. It's not that one exercise that might fix you. This is actually a set way of thinking that is going to benefit you long term and give you an advantage when rehabbing any injury yourself. So let's jump into it. I'll just make myself a little bit smaller. So we have two types of reasoning, two types of people, if you like. We've got one and we've got two. First person up here, they reason from analogy, and this second person reasons from first principles. Now, reasoning from analogy is pretty straightforward. If someone said to me, Fred, eating meat gives you cancer, and I asked them why, they would tell me, because I said it is, because I say so, or they would say, it's just known, or they heard it on the news, or it's quite a vague thing. They've heard it from somewhere else. Whereas first principles, if we take first principles of maths, for example, we know that 1 plus 1 equals 2. That is first principle. It is the foundation of that thing. It's not a truth. It's a fundamental truth. So there's a difference there. It's actually something that does not change in maths. Same thing in economics. So we know in economics, the first principle is supply and its demand. That does not change. Okay? People who are successful generally in life and who aren't successful, so people who aren't successful typically reason through analogy because it is subjective. People who tend to be successful, or in this case, actually rehab your injury effectively, reason through first principle, which is predominantly objective. Okay. Now, if we think of ourselves as humans, which we are, and we've got two circles here, this circle is the objective circle, and this circle is the subjective circle. So this is O and this is S. As humans, we are very subjective. We're over here. What we need to do is cross over into this objective realm as much as we can, because realistically the world is just broken down into these two realities, if you like. The objective reality, so these first principles in whatever field that may be, and it's broken down into our subjective reality, which is pretty much our life. So as much as possible, when we're trying to solve a problem, we need to be bridging the gap and going this way, so we're getting some objectivity. And this is really important, because if you don't use this first principle, or you get this first principle wrong, for example, if you when you learnt maths in school, if you thought 1 plus 1 was 3, every equation past 1 plus 1, so like let's say 3 plus 4, whatever it may be, it's not going to be the correct answer because you fundamentally think 1 plus 1 equals 3. Same thing with like Newton's law in physics. So like every reaction has an equal and opposite reaction. So again, this is the same thing in Newton's law of physics. So for every reaction, we have an equal and opposite reaction. That is a fundamental thing. And if you don't use that first principle in physics, you'll get nowhere within that field. Now, I actually see this a lot with people who are trying to rehab injuries and potentially have had false beliefs instilled in them. If you're not going off first principles, I'll run through what those are for injury rehab in a minute, and you're not using sound reasoning, you will not rehab your injury successfully, and you'll potentially end up going around in this injury cycle where you rehab your injury, kind of. You get back to the sport. This is sport, and you get into pain again. Kind of, this is like a half-assed rehab attempt. Rest it for a few weeks. This is sport. Don't know why that was S. And we just go round and round in this circle because you're not going off first principles for injury rehab. Well, in my opinion, the first principle, there's only one, but it can be broken down into smaller ones, is performance. That is what we are looking to improve. Yeah, performance. Well, as someone who goes to the gym, how do we improve performance? Well, it's pretty simple. If we break it down, we've got strength, we've got conditioning, we've got movement quality or mobility, whatever you want to call it. We've got sleep, we've got nutrition, all these things. Yeah. That's the fundamentals there. And these are the fundamentals because you can objectively measure them, and we know that if you improve these things, this equals greater performance in whatever sport or activity you're training in, you're competing in, or if it's even just a day-to-day activity. We know that improving these numbers, so your strength numbers, your conditioning numbers, your movement quality, your sleep, and your nutrition, which you can all measure objectively, if we improve those things, that's going to translate to your performance. Whereas, if we think that the first principles of injury rehab is either pain or it's that there's something fundamentally wrong with how your spine is positioned. I'm not having a go at chiropractors. I'm just fundamental belief. So if it's pain or if it's a fundamental belief about something that's incorrect, so like this spine thing, for example, so like you think your spine is out of alignment, or they tell you you're broken, then if you believe these two things, you're not going to get anywhere, because essentially what's happening is you're going to see said person to reduce these things, which they do, for example. So if you go see a massage therapist, I'm not having to go at people to do, massage therapy, but what's happening is you're going in, you at the top here, going in, you're getting your massage, that is then pain relief, and in your head then, you are happy because you think the first principle of injury rehab is pain relief. But then you have to keep going around in this circle because you think that is what injury rehab is. You think the first principle is just constantly being relieved of pain because inherently you've been told you're broken somewhere, maybe, for example. So if you think that at first principle, you're never going to get anywhere with your injury. Whereas if you know that it's performance and then it's broken down into strength, conditioning, movement quality, sleep and nutrition, I mean, you could put mindset in there potentially as well. Mindset, that's supposed to be an M. Then you understand what you need to do to improve. So I'm just going to run through another few examples just in life, in business, of first principle, if you don't believe me. So if we imagine a chef, what does it take to be a good chef at first principle? People might think it's the knives, or a particular spoon, or a particular technique. For example, like Salt Bae when he does the salt thing. But what it really is, at first principle, is just ingredients. Yeah, ingredients as a chef, and it's finding the best combination of ingredients to then produce the food, the highest quality food. Yep, not highest quality food, highest quality meal. So again, that's first principle. It's not anything else fancy down here. That's the first principle. That's what makes the best chefs. And again, the ingredients in this case are these things: strength, conditioning, movement quality, mindset, sleep and nutrition. They're not pain or the fact that you think you're fundamentally broken, your spine's out of alignment, etc., etc. Another great example of this is in rappers. So we can argue on this, but I think one of the greatest rappers of all time is probably Eminem. And what he did predominantly in his spare time, which is really, really interesting to become a phenomenal rapper, is he studied the dictionary, because this is the first principle of rapping, because all rapping is words and talking or singing words that rhyme. So Eminem studied the dictionary, which is first principle. He then has access to all the words, all the combination of letters and words that rhyme, and therefore he will beat anyone else in that particular game. Same thing as a chef. The chef that finds the best combination and best combination variety of ingredients is going to beat any other chef who has rubbish combination of ingredients but has these fancy knife skills, chops a certain way, etc., etc. Same thing here. The person recovering from an injury, who is focusing on strength, conditioning, movement quality, mindset, sleep, and nutrition, versus the person who's just focusing on pain relief, he's not going to win. Now, pain relief can be used as something to measure. I'm not saying you can't measure pain, but it's not first principle. The first principle is just like rehab's training. It's just like training. The first principle of training in any sense is improving performance, which is, again, strength, conditioning, movement quality, mindset, sleep, and nutrition at the fundamental base level. And so I'll give you another example. What I did when I came into the injury rehab market is, this is the process you go through when you're creating a first principle. You got reconstruction and you got deconstruction. And essentially what happens is you deconstruct injury rehab. So I deconstructed it into performance. What was performance? All of these factors. Then I reconstructed it and repackaged it as the appropriate first principles of rehab, from what I thought it was. So again, I broke everything down. I again thought, what was rehab? Broke it down into these, packaged that, reconstructed it, and then thought, this is actually the most important thing that people need to focus on if they want to get better. Another example is when I came into the injury rehab market, and I was asking around, I was like, how do I set my own private clinic? Everyone was like, oh, you have to be in person and you have to do hands-on treatment. And I was like, why? And they were just like, oh, that's just how it works. And then I actually broke it down in my head. And I was like, what am I doing as an injury rehab coach or as a physio? Well, I'm just giving people information. So essentially I'm selling information. And that's pretty much all I'm doing. I'm just giving people the knowledge and the accountability, so maybe accountability as well, for them to get better. So then I thought to myself, well, what's the most efficient way to do that? That requires less initial investment and requires less upkeep and outgoings. Well, it's obviously an online program or online coaching. So again, when this initial market, so old school physios, old school coaches, etc., when they think everything needs to be done in person, their reasoning for that is deluded. It's not down to first principles, because essentially all coaches are selling is information. So again, that relates back to the injury rehab. If you're going off these principles, they're the wrong principles and you will not get anywhere with your injury. So I hope you found that video useful. How you can actually use first principle to create an effective rehab program. And to summarize, you need to focus on performance and you need to focus on these things: strength, conditioning, movement quality, mindset, sleep and nutrition. I'm not going to give you anything specific within these areas because it really depends on the injury. But this mindset, focusing on these things, is far more powerful to actually make the shift from focusing on instant pain relief and the fundamental belief that it's not your fault or that you're inherently broken. So you need to make the shift from this to this. And the reason people struggle to do that is because this actually requires, improving these things actually requires some sort of effort, and actually requires improving on a personal level, with improving your sleep quality and improving your nutrition, being consistent with rehab sessions, as opposed to going and getting a massage every 4 weeks, which doesn't require much commitment, in my opinion. If you are interested in what I do with online rehab, just visit the link in the description down below.